Well, look, HR2, I think, is an ideal piece of legislation. However, look, I'm a Republican from New York. I'm in an overwhelming Democrat state, and I know that we have to negotiate with the Democrats, as much as I may not like it sometimes, to get anything done. And so, what I would say is HR2 is the Republican starting point. But that's why we need Senator Schumer to either allow a vote on our bill, okay, which again I think it would pass if he brought it up, even though the Democrats control the Senate, or pass your own bill, and then we can reconcile the differences. And we would have to give a little. Yes, we'd have to give a little. But certainly, as long as our main provisions, right, that would make sure people are not released in the interior of this country, making sure that people have to wait in the next safe country as they apply for asylum and go through an orderly process so our courts are not backlogged to the point where they are right now, which is a 10-year wait, making sure that we add more judges to alleviate this backlog, making sure that we're not taking these individuals who are paying the drug cartels to cross our southern border before the people who have come legally and have been waiting in the system for years. Right now, the way the system Joe Biden has it set up is the border crossers are being heard first. And so the people who have been waiting patiently, doing everything right, following the rules, didn't pay the drug cartels to come here, they're getting pushed to the back and they're getting years-long delays. And I know this because I've been working personally with many cases, constituents, and I've had to cut through this bureaucracy and red tape for them. And it's very unfair that the president is prioritizing the people who pay the drug cartels to be smuggled here, as opposed to the ones who have been waiting in the system. So I would simply say is I understand there's a give and take here, but it's hard to negotiate with the Senate when they've passed nothing. We need to see what their priorities are, right? That's how it works. We show you our cards, you show us yours, and then we try to reconcile the differences and get a piece of legislation passed.
So, Congresswoman, there's the Senate and the House obviously in play here, as well as the White House, because Biden's ultimately going to have to sign this legislation. And knowing that Biden does need a win on border policy politically, do you think there is another actor here for House Republicans in the man who is very likely going to be running against him in the general election in 2024? How much influence does Donald Trump have on the people in the House making these decisions right now?
Well, I don't think I think the House Republicans want border security. That is our number one priority. We want to see reasonable policy. And yes, we have legislation to add more visas for people that want to come and work and provide for their families in industries that we need workers, right, to address our labor shortage, and it should be strategic, and we should be doing that. But this idea that we're just going to allow 10 million people to enter our country, 2 million of which we don't know who they are, where they are, or what their intention are, that's the number that CBP estimated has entered our country, is very dangerous when we know fentanyl is killing a record number of Americans. We know that there's sex trafficking, children, women being exploited. When we know that we've caught terrorists at the border that are on the FBI watch list. I mean, this is insane that we would have this type of open border policy in a post 9/11 world. So I think the House is working independently, and this is their priority, regardless of any other national figures. I mean, we see this as a real issue, both economic issue, a public safety, national security issue, and it just needs to be addressed. And if Joe Biden will not do something like rescind the executive orders that created this, his executive orders that created this mess, then we need to take action. We got to use every tool and leverage that we have to get the Senate to act.
Well, Congresswoman, you say the House is going to make these decisions independently of any actor. So is that essentially you saying even if you do have the former president potentially making noise about a deal, that Mike Johnson and House leadership, which pretty much everyone has endorsed him at this point, would pass it anyway?
Look, I think you'll have the votes. If we actually get the Senate to work with us and we can hash out an agreement that would reinstate some of the Trump-era policies, address the issues of visas and asylum and work permits for people who are going to come legally and follow the proper path, then you would see what you usually see in these types of scenarios, right? Like you did in the debt default, you did it with avoiding the shutdown. You'll see the far right vote against it, the far left vote against it, and then everyone else in the middle voting for it. Over 300 probably members voting for it. That's what usually happens at the end of the day when there is a negotiation. The extremes sit it out, they vote no and complain about it. And then the middle, who actually have to govern, right? We pass the legislation, do what we can with people have to understand that Republicans, we control 1/3 of the government, right? The Democrats have the Senate, they have the White House. We need to negotiate. We're not going to get everything we want, but if we can get some really good wins that actually address the crisis and stop this mass migration flow to New York City that's hurting cities like ours and we can't afford it, and we're seeing citizen services being cut as a result, well, then that's a win and we should do it. Regardless of who, at the end of the day, will take political credit for it, we need to do the right thing.